This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Welcome to the Supreme Resort Land v World, a podcast about Disneyland and Walt Disney World, in which is the Supreme Resort. Each episode, we will discuss and explore each resort, ride by ride, land by land, park by park, to determine which is better. I'm your host, Jimmy, and thank you for joining me on this quest to help the greater good of humanity answer this long, elusive question, which is better, Disneyland or Walt Disney World? And joining me as always, fresh off a trip for Disneyland, is Dan.
I'm fresh and I smell like lemons. Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm not a collection of recordings of myself pumped through an AI machine.
Great. And fresh from his trip to the local pharmacy, Eric.
He loves drugs.
Yeah. I am an AI, unlike Dan. This is a conglomeration of everything I've ever said.
Nice. I heard a podcast recently that was a conglomerate. Never mind. I won't even say it. Happy April 2nd, everybody.
No, you didn't.
So, Dan, I do want to start with that. You just got back from Disneyland. You were there for 4 days, 5 days?
3, 4. It all bled together. Yeah.
And you were clearly staying at a local hotel because you don't live nearby.
Only the finest for me.
And of course, you used concierge to book
I did.
your
Yes.
entire trip.
Thank you personally for booking my trip for me. Thank you.
Pleasure. It was my pleasure. You were delightfully easy to work with. It felt like no work at all.
Which murder clown did Jimmy choose for you this time, Dan?
It was the Castle Inn and Suites.
The murder clown
It
hotel.
is shaped like a castle.
Yes. And inn and suites.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things you texted us, we got some pictures of Hollywood Land, which is foreshadowing. And we got some. You had some thoughts about traffic patterns now that Toontown is a real place again. So I want to hear about Toontown, and I want to hear your thoughts about the current state of the park.
I would even say that Toontown is more realer than it has ever been.
You might call it the Asher of lands.
It's the Asher of lands. Because if you think about it, it's always been kind of this like afterthought of a land in a lot of ways. But if you think about it now, you have in that land itself, you have Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin, and think about the queue for that, right? Not the most popular, but it can just take in a ton of people.
It eats a lot of people.
And then Mickey's house, which again, the whole thing's just like a long queue to see Mickey.
Right.
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is a great ride.
A great queue.
And it is a legitimate rope drop attraction where people could if you think this through, people could very legitimately and make a very strong argument for, I'm going to go straight to Toontown at rope drop. I'm going to go straight to Peter Pan at rope drop. I'm going to go straight to Galaxy's Edge at rope drop. And those of you who can see my hands, you see what I'm doing with that.
That's right. He's pointing in the right direction from Main Street, looking at the hub.
I can go to Indiana Jones, which reopened and has new stuff. Effects and new stuff. And stuff actually works again. Or I can go, because I'm old fashioned and I love the 80s, I can go to Space Mountain at rope drop.
Yeah, that's a lot of rope drop.
That's a good point. Did you go to rope drop and did you observe a noticeable distribution of those crowds?
I went to a rope drop. I usually will hit one just to get it out of me. And as you know, I go to Pirates of the Caribbean because thematically, yes. And that usually the past year, has it been 2 years? It's been a year, however long it's been. 2 years. It's been about 2 years, year and a half, whatever.
Since Disneyland like
reopened, yeah,
for real, okay,
yeah, for realsies, and it has never had, by the way, it's never been it's fully operational, to quote the Emperor. You had, we didn't have parades for a while. We didn't have nighttime spectaculars. We didn't have currently the only thing. No meet and greets, and they've all reopened, but things have closed. Currently, the only thing missing from the roster is a treehouse, which has like negligible effect on crowd patterns. So this is kind of Disneyland at its full power for the first time since the shutdown, because you got a daytime parade now, which is really good. All that. Anyway, I went to Pirates of the Caribbean to answer your question, and usually for the past however long it was, and that's where I got stuck. Pirates at rope drop, noticeable, like a little bit of a wait outside the door, 5-10 minute ish on the app. It's back to just walk straight on.
Right.
And same thing with Haunted Mansion, just walk straight on that thing.
So you saying that most people don't recognize that Pirates of the Caribbean is the thematic the most appropriate thematic element that you should have at the start of your Disneyland day.
And also most people don't recognize that if you really want to get the most out of your day, you go on the things that don't have lightning lane before you go on the things that whatever.
That's smart.
I'm not saying they're wrong, but they're wrong. And one thing I noticed was that Peter Pan, and I wasn't like stalking the numbers, but Peter Pan was generally around a half an hour all day.
And typically an hour at least, right?
It's usually like 45 minutes.
Because now you've taken that young crowd of any height and you can now go on a new Mickey ride.
Right. So it distributes all that stuff. And in terms of like planning where to go and when for your day, it's anyone's game right now because everything is different. And so like I noticed, for example, that Toontown during a parade was, especially the afternoon, the later parade, because the parade's going up from Main Street, so a bunch of suckers are waiting in Small World area for longer than they need to. Toontown was pretty dead during that time, but after that time, oh my God, you don't want to be there. Conversely, some fun trick there is I noticed for all 3 days, 3.5, if you want to see the parade, you can walk up to the area, the standing seating area, right by the Disney Gallery, by the train station on Abe Lincoln side. Yeah. You could walk up 5 minutes before the parade starts. There's always something available. So hot tip, everybody.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else is back in Toontown. Is Minnie's house still there?
Minnie's house is still there. You got the Gadgets Go coaster. We got play areas that are like legit play areas.
How much time did you spend playing on the grass?
Several hours. I like to roll around because usually real grass makes me itchy and I don't like it because my skin's real sensitive. So I just was rolling around the fake grass. No, not really. There were a lot of kids running around doing, a lot of weird abstract childlike movements that they call play. And
did they move Gadgets Go coaster?
No. They just expanded all the other stuff.
But they got rid of Chip and Dale's little ball house, so you got all that empty open space now.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing Goofy's or Pluto's doghouse. Is that new? Or just never noticed it?
Doghouse?
It's on the map. There's Pluto's doghouse. Or maybe it's a garage.
That's a foodery, isn't it?
Not what I'm looking at on the map. But Cafe Daisy is new, it seems.
Cafe Daisy has been expanded in terms of like it offering a lot of different things.
And Good Boy Grocers.
There's characters all over the place. Like it is actually living up to what, maybe not the aesthetic version of what it was promised to be, but the actual purpose of what it was promised to be. Like it's a play area. It's got everything. It's great.
Yeah. And what about all the touch explosion fireworks house? Pull the bars apart, all that.
That's still there. And I don't have children that I'm aware of. So I can't really relate to this. And Jimmy, maybe you will be able to. But looking at the faces of the parents watching their children frolic about in the play areas, they had this noticeable look of, oh, thank God.
Yeah, because the kids can run around and they're supposed to run around in that area. And mom and dad can just sit and let them run around and be safe.
And maybe this buys them time, on something that they want to do. I don't know how that game works.
You know what they need to do is at the entrance of Toontown, underneath the tunnel for the train, they need to set up one of those turnstile things like Chuck E. Cheese, and they give everybody a matching stamp, so that way that kid cannot leave that land without a matching stamp. And then you just go. Set up a bar.
Just leave. Just leave.
Well, no, not leave. Go into the land, go to the bar, and let the kids just run around because they can't leave.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I mean, it's kind of set up like that. I was in, I don't want to say argument, but sort of argument with someone online. Surprise, big surprise.
Say what?
And I was saying, I've been saying a lot on this show even that they have to connect Toontown with Galaxy's Edge in some way because it's right there.
It's right there.
And someone introduced me to this argument, which actually makes a lot of sense. They said, well, they can't have it be connected. The reason why it works as a dead end is so that parents can know that, like, at least they're in here. You have that one entry point, one exit point that is kind of away from everything interesting. I don't know how intentional that is. But
I don't know how intentional that is either. I think it is a dead end, and it was designed not intentionally as a dead end. Maybe it's a unintended consequence, but I don't know. I don't buy it.
I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they're wrong. It's something I didn't really see before. It does have that effect, but I don't know how intentional it is. I will add though that just avoid the train station in Fantasyland unless you are getting off of it, because you never know. You never know what you're going to get there. Yeah. And also, when you walk into the land, you know how you have that, you go under the train station. They've added like an audio curtain, sort of.
Oh, cool.
Of like wacky, sounds going back and forth.
Oh, okay.
And so the staff members working there hate it.
Yeah. So kind of like a representation of what it was like in the movie Roger Rabbit.
It's a transition. It's
That's
they
really
cool.
Well.
I mean, I keep telling people too, I'm part of the show, and I go to Disneyland way more than, the average person, but I'm not a Disney apologist. If anything, you two nerds are. And I think that,
Jimmy's more of a universal apologist these days.
That's true. And I just like that I can bully you on that one thing. and
give him that one thing, Jimmy.
You two nerds. But I try to make it clear to people when I talk about, these things, people, normies, I'm just like, consider who I am and consider whether this was built for me. It was not. And I would totally tell you if it sucked, and I would identify it. It works. I mean,
that's great.
Yes, I did go down the slide, but only one time.
Did you, or did you not say, wee?
I think I actually said, oh, dear God.
Which slide?
There's 3 slides. One just goes straight down. And there's 2 right next to each other that have a little bump.
Okay.
And because I'm a big boy and I'm not scared of big boy things, I went on the bumpy one.
Ooh.
And when it bumped, that's when I said, oh, dear God.
Did you launch slightly at each bump?
Get some air,
or was it just spinal compression?
Some hang time.
It's a little spinal compression. It has rollers, so it does interesting things to your butt.
Ooh, I might go.
Jimmy and
backwards.
I are in.
Eric and I will be there 3 weeks from this very moment. Well, maybe not this very moment, but 3 weeks from today we'll be there.
We'll probably be there this very moment. At least I will.
Yeah, I don't land until, I don't know. I haven't booked my thing. But anyway, 3 weeks from today.
You haven't booked a flight yet?
No, I don't have time.
Aren't you a travel planner or something?
I'm too busy planning for other people. I don't have time for me.
Jimmy, if you want your travel planned, call Concierge. It's 856 our ears.
Perfect. Done. You know what? I'll do that. Actually,
totally
Concierge do it.
Totally do that.
Don't request me. That's all.
Yes. Okay. Well, so moving on, unless you have anything else, Dan or Eric, on Disneyland, the state of the park.
Not really. Magic Happens. Really good parade, by the way. It was really good. Yeah.
Well, then we'll see Magic Happens maybe after we go to Club 33, Eric.
All right.
With Tom.
Okay, so let's get straight into the show. I do want to talk about the Reedy Creek Improvement District, some kind of big news this week, and some language that is phenomenal, and a big old middle finger to the state of Florida, specifically Ron DeSantis. But we're going to get into that later.
Little Rhonda.
Ron DeSantis.
That should be his nickname for him, not Meatball or whatever.
Or DeSanctimony.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so there's also some news around that man, but we won't get into it.
Wait, what's happening?
What happened?
He's not president anymore? Is that what's happening?
At this point, nothing has happened, but whatever. Probably nothing ever will. Anyhow, before we get into that, I would like to start our show. We have a versus episode. Let me rephrase. We planned a versus episode. As you've been listening for the last couple of months.
Ready.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on.
And you've noticed, we've kind of shared that our lives are a little bit on the chaotic end, probably more so than they've ever been. We really
for good reasons, we should add.
Yes, for good reasons. Dan is at Disneyland, etc. He's doing research. But you gotta think that we are proud of the content of the show. One of the things that I said from the beginning is I want it to be accurate and I wanted it to be well researched. So much of the stuff we can kind of pull from the top of our heads, but there's a lot of stuff we don't know that we learn from the show. So we thought, because we're all busy, but we want to get back to the core of what this show is, which is better, is we thought, well, you know what? There's a Hollywood street in California Adventure and there's a Hollywood street in Hollywood Studios. So let's just do the streets, right? And it'll just be quick and easy. We can kind of get to the verses. And then we realized upon some research that they're both lands. These are both full-fledged lands that we have not covered as a whole. Like, we like to cover everything in the land before we do the land. We also like to have Mae and Natalie on for the lands episode. So we're going to see how this goes. But the intent is to argue the Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood Studios versus Hollywood Land, because that's what that street is called. Now, there is a Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood Land, but it goes perpendicular to the main street where you get your award wieners, etc. So we're calling this, at the moment, the case of the Hollywood-themed street, Sunset Boulevard versus Hollywood Land. Eric is going to argue for Sunset Boulevard. Dan is going to argue for Hollywood Land. There will be sounds played at some point. I don't know when. And
you mean like now?
There we go. It's very Hollywood. So is there another one, or is it all the same? Or is it just whatever happens to be playing at the time you turn it up? There you go.
I think it's the second one.
Okay, so now, Eric, we don't have the same sort of structure around, like, we've had, the introduction, what is this thing? Tell us about the queue, the ride experience, land impact, etc. We don't have that kind of same structure because we're talking about lands effectively that we haven't really covered in a whole. But we'll cover shops, cover restaurants, we'll cover attractions. We won't go into full detail, just kind of real highlight, I think, and a lot of the history and backstory about the lands.
Yeah.
Starting with Eric, because Sunset Boulevard came first. It was an extension to Hollywood Studios after in the 90s?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then, of course,
if you want the exact,
I do.
You've got to ask nicely.
Okay, please, Eric, will you tell me exactly when Sunset Boulevard opened, complete with Rock and Roller Coaster, Aerosmith, Tower of Terror, and Fantasmic?
Okay, now you're just getting complicated.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, those all opened on different days.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
that's fair. But Tower of Terror opened with the land, right?
It did not.
Dun, dun, dun. We've done that episode. We probably covered it then. All right. Well, you're going to get to it.
Sure.
So we're going to start with Eric, and I might just volley back and forth between the two of you because there's no real structure here. We're going to kind of figure it out as we go. And this may evolve into multiple episodes, but we will find resolution at some point, which land is better. We'll get there. It may not be today, but we will get there, and we'll give you so much fun content in the meantime. So, Eric, why don't you go ahead and share with us what you'd like to share with us about Sunset Boulevard?
I would love to share with you what I want to share with you.
I don't mean the musical.
Okay.
You have a bunch about Mr.
Hang on.
DeMille.
I got to rewrite my notes here. Okay, less DeMille, less Norma Desmond.
Norma Desmond, that's what it is. Yes.
That was her name, right?
Norma Desmond.
Do I remember my Sunset Boulevard? Okay.
Ready for my close-up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, that's the one. Well, oh my goodness.
Also referenced a lot by David Lynch. Just put that out there.
Oh, that famous gentleman. Yeah. What a guy.
David Lynch, if you're listening, if you want to be on the show, email our producer, David at earsup-podcast.com.
And David will tell you all about David Lynch, or is David Lynch?
I'm already loving where this episode's going.
Wow. That's deep, man.
Why even start the show?
That's fair.
All right.
Should we talk about DeSantis?
Yeah. Well, David DeSantis or Ronald DeSantis?
Rhonda Santos.
Rhonda Santos. All right.
We're saying it.
Disney MGM Studios opened up in 1989. That's a time. That's a date. Kind of. That's a year. That's not a date. It's a year. 5 years later, the park was looking for expansion as part of the initial plans for the park. I guess the initial idea was to create a Toontown of sorts, create a Roger Rabbit themed Toontown in MGM Studios that spurred off of the main Hollywood Boulevard, that the main drag straight as you enter the original MGM Studios. So there was the original setup was pretty much you head down this street and you see the Chinese theater in front of you. You enter the main hub, which, if you look at it from above, was a silhouette of Mickey, complete with eyes and a smiling mouth, the way that they had the concrete laid out and everything. And Echo Lake was one ear. The other ear was the Theater of the Stars, which was themed to it was a take on the Hollywood Bowl. So it was a smaller version of the Hollywood Bowl that had multiple shows there over the early years.
Oh, please tell me you have them.
Oh, do you want them?
Yes.
Do you want me to stall while I bring up that part of my notes? Because I thought I was going to talk about them later.
Whatever. I just think.
Whereas,
let's see here.
Hollywood Land was an opening land. And it was called Hollywood Pictures Backlot.
Yes, it was Hollywood Pictures Backlot. And it was part of,
complete with the ABC soap opera Bistro.
Yes, the ABC
which we have to do an episode on at some point.
I would love to.
We have to do.
There's
I don't know what the counterpart is.
Well, does Disney World have an absurdly priced, overly themed restaurant that is now closed?
I mean, probably. We'll have to look into it.
How much would but how much would you pay for theme park jambalaya? Just think about it. I'm not saying you need to have an answer now. Just think about it.
I have recently paid for theme park jambalaya, which I had, I believe, at the pirate restaurant when we were there and I had COVID.
Oh, right.
Did they have jambalaya or was that gumbo?
Oh, I had a Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was good.
Would you pay in 2023 money? $32
Probably.
Theme park jambalaya.
But only if I could be in a recreation of a set of General Hospital. And only then would I pay.
I'm very sorry for you that ABC Soap Opera Bistro no longer exists.
At the time that park opened, I was dating someone who watched General Hospital every day.
Wow.
And I watched it with her, and we would enjoy some of the Devil's Cabbage. And so we would watch General Hospital.
Pickled cabbage
every day on the couch.
Hold on. What time was General Hospital?
It was recorded. I don't care.
Oh, okay.
A DVR, baby. And we would sit and watch that, and I was so into it. Like I knew all the things.
That's what that cabbage will do. It gets you into whatever.
Everything is the greatest.
It is.
And so, I was very excited to eat in the Soap Opera Bistro because I could recognize Port Charles and all of the the things and the stuff. But short-lived. But anyway, Eric, did we stall long enough?
Oh, we stalled just long enough. Let me tell you all about the Theater of the Stars. During the first few years of the Disney MGM studios, there was a daily Star Today promotion where a star of the day would come in and do their handprint and inscribe a chunk of concrete. Not all of these chunks of concrete would actually be kept. I guess they were all kept, but they weren't all displayed immediately. Some of them were swapped out in front of the Chinese theater, much like the Hollywood stars. But guests like Annette Funicello, Jane Powell,
they landed
Howard
Annette Funicello?
Yeah,
they did. I don't know how they got her. But you know what? I wonder if Phyllis Diller hooked them up because she was there too. Like so many random people
come to the theater and watch it.
Yes, this was a daily presentation at the theater.
Wow.
Where they would have them do the thing. And one of the ads I saw said, come see the stars. They're here. They're live. So close you can touch them.
Whoa.
But please don't.
Please don't touch George Wendt.
Is that building no longer there?
That building is no longer there.
Okay.
Now,
what is
daily,
in instead?
Well, there's emptiness there. But the other shows that ran in this, we're talking about the shows. Dan wanted to know the shows.
Mm-hmm.
The original show that ran every day from opening day until 1991, mid 1991, was a show called Hollywood.
Oh God! Oh, that's worse than I thought it would be.
Where Goofy and various other,
I mean, not Hooray for Hollywood or like Hollywood.
I mean,
with Goofy,
yeah, with Goofy, Goofy and many singers and dancers. They're all in black and white. They're all in their formal best. They're dancing. They're singing. It's just a generic tribute to Hollywood that ran for a couple of years.
Wow.
I need to see if this is on YouTube.
It is.
It's gotta be.
Would you like me to send you one of the links that I have here? We're gonna have to retool this show to have more live. This needs to be a walkabout from now on. But after that show ended, there was a short-lived. Interspersed with that show was a swing band show called Swing, 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 capitalizing on the.
Now that I could see because that's a play on sing, 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 sing. Everybody wants to sing.
Yes.
With the D and the dot dot da.
Yes, and Swing, Swing, Swing was a John Williams tribute to the song Sing, Sing, Sing used in the film Swingers.
There you go.
Which is, I mean, it's a pretty good song. After these shows were done,
I'm watching it right now. I'm watching Hollywood. It's so. It's exactly what I was picturing.
You're gonna want to pause Hollywood and switch to Dick Tracy in Diamond Double Cross.
Oh, we had that at Disneyland for a short time.
Well, yeah, they had it at Walt Disney World for a short time as well. Dick Tracy pointing a Tommy gun at various horrific-looking masked men in primary colors.
Those of you not familiar with this phenomenon that swept the nation, Dick Tracy was a huge success. Everyone was talking about it. All the kids were excited about how Al Pacino played the villain.
And how Madonna played a person.
Yeah, I remember it was all the talk at my elementary school. We're like, how many times have you seen Dick Tracy?
And if anyone said more than once, they were lying. This was that one kid who was really into the strips, I'm sure.
This is post-Wells Eisner era, right?
No. Yeah, no, because Wells died in the 90s.
Yeah, this was 1990.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but to get back to Sunset Boulevard, Eric, you were saying that it was originally intended to be a Roger Rabbit sort of themed thing. Like Roger Rabbit was on all the billboards and they had stuff themed around the movie, but then they couldn't get the rights. Is that right?
Yeah. And you know what? Before they could clear the way for that plan, we have a few more shows that premiered on the Theater of the Stars location.
Wait,
there was Hollywood's
this?
This is 1989. This is 5 years. 89 to 94. Well, less because they had to demolish the stage. So
this is completely ambitious. By the way, I'm looking at Hollywood once again. It has all the production value of like a Laughlin stage show that is trying to look like it has the production value of a Las Vegas stage show.
Delightful. Great. Yes. Well, the next show that appeared in that location was Hollywood's Pretty Woman.
Was it Minnie Mouse?
It featured Roger Rabbit,
Jessica
Mickey,
Rabbit,
Minnie, and Goofy. There are tributes to many famous actors of the stage and screen, including Judy Garland, Ginger Rogers, Carmen Miranda, Jeanette MacDonald, and Madonna.
Wow.
And there was a finale that had a Kermit and Miss Piggy walk around back when the Muppets had full-sized walk-around characters. Not Muppets, but full-sized, human-sized walk-around characters of Kermit and Miss Piggy joined the stage. After that...
Which they are terrifying, by the way.
Yes, listener, I have to... just give you a little place setting commentary. Dan has a television behind him, and he was looking to put Hollywood on that television screen.
Yeah, I was.
Failed attempt.
I'm going to try again.
Okay.
That show surprisingly only lasted 2 years.
Shocking.
Shocking. Right. Only not 2 years, 2 months.
Okay.
What am I saying? Months. They're shorter than years. It's months. September to November. After that, Beauty and the Beast, a retelling of the movie, staged, starting the same day as the movie opened. So not the Broadway version of this film. This was the version that you can actually see now to this day at Hollywood Studios with a lot of cartoony folks dancing around in cup costumes.
Right there on Sunset Boulevard.
So that aired in 1991 and had to be shut down in 1993 when they demolished the theater to open up a whole street behind it.
Which is
Sunset Boulevard.
Sorry, Sunset Boulevard.
Yes.
Wonderful. And so all the Roger Rabbit theming thing fell through. And
that all fell through because of licensing between, I mean, the movie itself was some sort of odd flash in the pan, once in a lifetime sort of phenomenon where we had Amblin and Disney collaborating on the character of Roger Rabbit. But then, we had Warner Brothers involved. All of these extra characters from across multiple cartoon universes existing in the same film.
And that movie was, like you said, kind of a never will happen again. And I don't know if we've talked about it on the show before, but there are a couple of interesting facts about it that no Warner Brothers character could have less screen time than a Disney character. So Mickey Mouse couldn't say more than Bugs Bunny.
Right.
Daffy Duck couldn't do more than or less than Donald, etc.
Right.
And there is a sort of a breakthrough in animation done in that film, and they actually have vernacular in animation still to this day, similar to like e-ticket and that sort of thing that are used in the common theme park vernacular in animation. It's when Roger Rabbit is in the back room at the pub, the Red Trolley Inn, with Eddie Valiant, and Eddie hits the light, and the light flashes and reflects on Roger Rabbit like he's actually in the space. And so I don't know the exact term, but it's something like hit the light, something or other, that is a reference to kind of the reality of that thing that's not in a room behaving as though it's in a room.
Well, yeah. And it made I think what you're getting to is that adding that touch ended up making the animation, which was already like very, very hard to do, even harder to do, but it made for more immersive thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, really, it has nothing to do with Sunset Boulevard.
No, not really, other than they wanted to put a Toontown in there that was Roger Rabbit themed. We would have gotten a cartoon spin, perhaps slightly differently themed, but still, that was the idea, was to create a Roger Rabbit themed area in MGM, Disney MGM Studios, and that did not happen because all of these licensing things fell apart.
Very popular movie. They wanted to capitalize on it. They did do so at Disneyland. We're not able to in Hollywood Studios / Disney MGM Studios.
Well, there's still some touches, some nods to Roger Rabbit. The backlot tour, I really loved. The old one of the portions of the backlot tour where you could go into the Acme factory.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
You could take a picture underneath the steamroller, and they had a bunch of gag props from the movie, many of which ended up getting moved to Toontown in Disneyland when that opened up. But there is still a small amount of Roger Rabbit in the theme park right now, where if you head to the Echo Lake area above Hollywood and Dine Eatery, Buffeteria, there's the offices of Valiant and Valiant, where you can see the spot from the movie where Roger Rabbit burst through the window. So you see the blinds and the window itself smashed in the shape of Roger's silhouette.
Before.
You've never seen that?
I've not seen that. That's
Rabbit.
where like the 50s primetime cafe and all that stuff is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to look up more.
My goodness. I loved that as a kid because they had a studio for Maroon Cartoon. I guess that's not the offices of Valiant and Valiant, because
I was about to say it's
Maroon
Cartoon
Studios.
Yes.
He went through RK Maroon's window.
Right. Yes. So it's Maroon Studios.
Wow.
There are also signs around there that say no, rooms for rent, no actors, no tunes.
Oh.
Yeah. So some of these things still stick around, but you never walk that way unless you're going to eat at the 50s primetime cafe.
Correct. Or you're trying to bypass the crowd on the main drag.
Right.
I have a question. At what point are you going to talk about Sunset Boulevard?
How far into this episode are we? Hey, you wanted the history.
No, I did.
I talked about a thing that was on there.
That's it. Very organic. I like it. Keep going.
Okay, maybe give Dan a shot. I don't know.
We talked about Soap Opera Bistro.
The history, California Adventure.
Yes.
You know, like this
is that your argument?
Well, I mean, could be. It very well could be.
All right, back to me.
Anytime in this episode, anytime Eric talks, it's probably going to be a more interesting and less depressing piece of content.
All right.
Okay.
So keep going. Tell us more history to Eric.
Sunset Boulevard. All right. Sunset Boulevard opened up in 1994. In June of 1994. And really all it had in the early days were a few shops and a little red trolley that kind of harkened to that 1940s era Hollywood. In fact,
also in Roger Rabbit.
Yes, also in Roger Rabbit. The number on that trolley, which is still a cart that sells things to this day, that trolley is numbered 694, which means June 1994.
Nice.
And at the end of the street, you had the Beauty and the Beast show, which was moved to the new theater, which they kind of recreated the Hollywood Bowl, made it a little bit bigger than the initial theater. And they had the Beauty and the Beast live on stage show there at the new Theater of the Stars.
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot else there. It took another month for the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror to open.
So the building was there. It just wasn't open.
Yes, the building was there. And then they opened up that area. And then a year later, they opened up the Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith at G-Force Records.
Nice.
We've talked about all of these things.
We have. We've talked about Phantasmic. We did an episode. We did an episode with Incredicoaster and Rock and Roller Coaster, and we did the Towers of Terror. Mm-hmm. Have we done the Treehouse?
We have.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, because we'll have to relitigate that when the new Treehouse opens.
We will.
Yes.
All right. So
what we haven't talked about is the more recent Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, which
we sure haven't.
Also exists tucked as far back away from anything ever at the back end of Sunset Boulevard.
Ultimate dead end.
Right.
In so many ways.
It's a show, I guess, at the Sunset Showcase Theater. There's a dance party outside. You can meet Lightning McQueen. You can see a lot of animatronic cars look like they're driving.
Here's what I want to do. I want to do a full episode on these lands, where we explore, once we've covered everything, where we kind of explore in more detail about stuff. So maybe we can really make this argument about the street. Which street is the most Hollywood of streets in the Disney Hollywood version? You know what I mean? Because
I thought that's what we were doing.
Well, that was the original plan, but so we can do that. But I do want to take the time to go through the lands in more detail. If we need to talk about the Racing Academy, whether that's in that episode or whether that's its own episode. And I think as we go through this and kind of figure out what the similarities are, like, for example, Dan hasn't said it yet, but there's a live stage show opportunity in Hollywood Land, just like there is in the Buena Vista, right? Sunset. Which one is it? Sunset.
Yes.
Yeah, but you've got two of them in Sunset, two live shows, Phantasmic and Beauty and the Beast live on stage.
Beast, yes.
I believe there are bathrooms and a very similar side street on the right-hand side in both, if I'm not mistaken. You've got an attraction.
There's so many bathrooms on Sunset Boulevard. Let me tell you, so many. There are 3.
Okay.
4 if you count Brown Derby.
But I'm just remembering, if I'm remembering correctly, both of them, as you go down the street on the right-hand side, there's a little alleyway alcove of bathroom. So
true.
And then they both have attractions, but Hollywood Boulevard doesn't have rides outside of Monsters, Inc.
No, not anymore, because
PhilharMagic is a thing.
Gerrymandered.
Yes, exactly.
PhilharMagic, or PhilharMagish rather, exists and is there. And yeah, it's just monsters and a bunch of facades that are great. And let me tell you how great they are. We have so many things. We have a thing that looks like another thing, a lot of stuff that looks like other things, sounds that sound like other sounds. For example, there is a restaurant that sells hot dogs. Can you guess what it's called?
Award Wieners.
It is exactly. It is called Award Wieners. Because you see, in Hollywood, a lot of people win awards, and
not as
hot
many
dogs
as they'd
are
like.
frequently called wieners.
Or weenies. We all would call it a weenie.
What they did is they Award wieners. They also have a place for smoothies. It's called Schmoozies.
Because in Hollywood,
you schmooze, and it sounds really close to smoothies, so they call them schmoozies. And you get like smoothies and shakes there.
And in Hollywood, people like a lot of smoothies. They're health nuts.
They sure do. They're just a bunch of fruits and nuts on this Hollywood. Anyway, the design
that sounds like Hollywood, a bunch of fruits and nuts.
The Hollywood Pictures backlot aimed to capture the essence of Hollywood's golden age, featuring a mix of real-life landmarks and stylized architecture inspired by classic films. Construction on Disney's California Adventure began in 1998, and the park officially opened on what date? The date that everybody is familiar with. It's because its significance in the greater Walt Disney Company. That's right, February 8th, 2001.
Oh.
It's a day when stuff happened.
So 281.
Can I? Oh, that's usually 789. So anyway, that was dumb.
Oh, I get that one too.
Can I just ask questions at this point?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm trying to find sort of narrative equivalence because of my line of linear thinking.
Right.
And I'm conflating the two. I'm seeing them as a street, a dead end, if you will. And so on the right-hand side, what used to be the ABC Bistro is now a stage show.
Yes, it is Playhouse Disney, I think.
Something like that.
Disney Junior, live on stage. And Eric, is there an equivalent to, because that's just another live show. So I stand corrected. There are two live shows. Yeah, why not? I mean, if I'm trying to win the argument, sure.
So the equivalent, let's say for the sake of this argument, is that the equivalent no, it would be Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay.
From quality of theatrical performance.
That's
the
a
Hyperion
fun
theater show would be equivalent to Fantasmic in a similar location. So you got that, and then you've got eateries, a lot of sort of stands, a couple you can mobile order from. You've got Anaheim Produce, which of course, near Hollywood-ish. And so that would be like your award wieners, maybe. And then you've got Rosie's. So I'm just trying to think, you've got some eateries and you've got some shops. I think, is it fair to say that Sunset Boulevard has more shops? Because there's a shop immediately to the left. There's a Starbucks. There's another shop.
There are three basic shops and then a whole bunch of eateries and a pin stand located in the middle, and then shops at the rides.
At California Adventure, we have Gone Hollywood and Off the Page.
Off the Page. That's from
also,
the animation
the building. Avengers Marvel Mall.
That's right. That big warehouse.
The pop-up mall that exists in the former Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Play it location.
I have not been in that. I have not set foot in that location since.
It's the coldest place on Earth.
Because it used to be the Frozen thing, didn't it? Isn't there a Frozen display there?
You're right. Yes.
I think there was.
The AC is still cranked.
So, God, I'm just trying to sort through. I mean, you did the research, so you keep talking. I'm trying to figure out. There's a lot of equivalence in these two lands.
Let me ask you something, Jimmy.
Sure.
Did the other one over there have a little thing called Superstar Limo?
Oh no, that's fair.
And is that a positive or a negative?
History's mysteries here.
What would be the equivalent for that? It would be Lightning McQueen.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's still
Have
there.
we found our match?
Well, so is Monsters, Inc.
Yeah. No.
We've already done Monsters, Inc.
So
I'm just saying an equivalent to. Well, anyway, go ahead. Keep going, Dan.
Well, we still need to find the matchup for Superstar Limo for worst closed attraction.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
something in the food, in the Wonders of Life Pavilion,
maybe Food Rocks, maybe Making of Me, just for different reasons.
Yeah, that was great.
There was a boat tour around nothing in Animal Kingdom.
That's true. That's a good point.
The early boring
that
boat
was
tour.
closed in a year.
The space that has Lightning
Maybe
McQueen also has Club Disney, or had Club Disney and Club Villain.
I think if we go based on how long they were open, I think the boat around nothing is the contender.
That might be it, because that ride was a ride around nothing. So
yeah. Anyway,
and it lasted less than a year.
We had that. There used to be stuff in the Hyperion Theater. I could tell you more about that. We had the animation building, which is still there, but you could do more when it opened. But COVID came in and single-handedly decided that everything needed to be closed forever. Those things are the place where you could go revoice animated segments.
That's right.
You could make animated drawings that were animated, and now you get to go and have an algorithm tell you that you are Jafar.
And you used to be able to have like classes on how to draw Mickey.
They still have that. And you can still see people wandering around the streets with their really, really bad drawings because they suck.
Oh, man.
And have we done that structure as a versus?
We have not, and we could.
We need to.
Also, Turtle Talk is still in that building. The lobby is wonderful. I want to go into
detail about it. That was a phenomenal building.
Yeah.
And
so now you're seeing where Eric and I started to fall apart in the concept of this.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need to do that. We need to figure out the Superstar Limo thing at some point. We need to figure out the show. We've already done Phantasm. We did the Tower. So we need to cover all those. I think maybe some of the eateries. I think Award Wieners versus Rosie's. Whoever else has hot dogs, or that little chimichanga stand. What's it called? It's like a little trolley, Eric.
Oh, let's see. So there's Rosie's, Catalina Eddie's,
Fairfax Fair, Hollywood
Fair.
Scoops.
Yeah, Hollywood Scoops. There's Anaheim Produce.
Would it be Scoops versus Schmoozies?
There you go.
And then we got Carthay versus Brown Derby.
Is Brown Derby in Hollywood or in Sunset Boulevard?
It has.
It's at the end of it.
It's in it as much as Carthay is in.
It has
Hollywood
an entrance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well,
by the way, it's listed as Hollywood Boulevard, but yeah, we can annex it, right? I mean, Matterhorn used to be in Tomorrowland. Why not?
Yeah, it's our show.
Or we could just do different boulevards, whatever.
Hyperion Theater featured Disney Steps in Time.
That's right, Mary Poppins.
Review of Disney songs. And I just remember that might be the one where a grown-ass woman sings a love song to a child.
There you go.
I'm not sure.
Godmother.
All this needs to be addressed and serviced properly, right? I don't want to just skip over it. I feel like it needs to have detail.
Well, at least that last part, Steps in Time, was brought up on the Hyperion episode that we had.
That's right.
We didn't talk much about the large box that it was contained in, or the facade of a theater in front of an actual theater.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
There's so many facades. There's so many facades. Oh my goodness!
Well, let's keep talking about streets. Let's keep just talking about the streets, and let's figure out which street is more the Hollywood that never was.
Well, before we get there, I think we're kind of in a place for me to shove this in.
Since I fixed my audio, here you go. Yeah. We've got a great bed for you.
The lead Imagineers behind the Hollywood Pictures backlot at Disney's California Adventure were Tony Baxter and Barry Braverman. Tony Baxter was a senior vice president of creative development at Walt Disney Imagineering and played an integral role in the development of Walt Disney's Disneyland's Dole Pineapples Disney's California Adventure, including the Hollywood Pictures backlot. Barry Braverman served as the show producer for the park and was also involved in the creative process of Hollywood Pictures backlot. So basically, this was Barry Braverman's deal. Now, before we get into this, I need to argue. I am not making fun of this man as a person.
Barry?
I am just merely saying you need to know your talent and your staff and who you have on board. Barry was also responsible for interventions in Epcot because he was a San Francisco State University College of Education major. That makes sense. But maybe don't put him in charge of creative decisions. He also was in charge of Disney Paris Studios, Who, and Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. In an interview with Season Pass Podcast, which I sought out today because Barry Braverman is a fascinating man, he gives the impression that people didn't seem to get the humor or the point of Superstar Limo, but he's pretty sure that if it was allowed to stay open, it would have a cult following today. He also seems to think that if DCA were given a chance to develop its own audience separate from Disneyland, the original version would be just as loved today as Disneyland is. And he's absolutely shocked that It's Tough to Be a Bug and Muppet Vision didn't have the same response here in California as at Walt Disney World. They truly didn't anticipate so many pass holders at the theme park where they were aggressively selling annual passes for the low price of $99 a year.
I bought one.
This is a theme. It's kind of like, and I have also in my notes, this is just commentary. This is kind of like the cancel culture argument of comedians, where they just don't want to update their material. So they're like, oh, they don't understand. They don't get it. It's always the pass holder's fault. So that's Barry Braverman. Also known, I found this interesting in his IMDb. He was a part of the creative team behind Hysteria. Do you remember Hysteria? It was an edutainment animated series that parodies and satirizes history, pop culture, and the edutainment concept itself.
Oh,
it was
edgy.
Yeah.
But fun. But fun.
Yeah. Remember when Tiny Toon Adventures was like the thing that everyone was into, and then a bunch of other people were like, hey, we need to do that same edgy humor. Hysteria was one of them.
It was about the time that this saxophone solo is over.
So listener, thank you for being a part of one of our planning episodes. So we'll keep going, but I think what I've found, in order for us to do this episode properly, this will be part one. Mm-hmm. Okay, part two, we'll get Mae and Natalie.
And at some point, it won't be like...
Yeah, it won't be next week. But before we do that, we have to do Superstar Limo versus Disney Animal Kingdom boats. Art of Animation. Art of Animation versus what?
I'm glad I hit on those boats.
What's that?
I think it was Launch Bay we said before we hit record, right?
Launch Bay, but there's a Launch Bay in both.
No, not at Disneyland anymore.
Did they take the sign down?
It's a lounge now.
It's going to be a lounge. And it's now meet Darth Vader if you have a Disney Visa.
Oh, I thought the lounge was going in the Starcade.
No, the lounge is above the Circle Vision Theater. It used to be the old.
That's right.
Sponsor lounge.
Not Circle Vision though. The Circle Theater.
Sorry, Circle Theater.
That's fine. Carousel Theater.
Restaurants in both. So we did like we did for Tomorrowland. We just kind of did a high level on all the fast foodie restaurants. Mm-hmm. Brown Derby and Carthay Circle neither of them are in the lands we're talking about, but we do need to do an episode about them because of what
they act effectively as the fancy restaurant places for both.
That's right.
And they're the same distance away.
Unrelated to episode 2 of this show, of this land, but certainly something we need to do. So I've got, before we can get this completed as a land, we need to do Superstar Limo. Oh, we also need to do Disney Junior Live on Stage versus Disney Junior Dance Party.
So we've got to go into the other street?
Yes.
Oh my god. Well, I suppose they are both Disney Junior things. Yeah.
I guess I'm going to Disney Junior next time I go.
Well, we can go for you.
We can all go together.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. And we can go to the Hollywood Studios one where it's just a wasteland of of strollers.
We'll have to figure out
That's
when
all
I'm
it is.
Anyway, so I think, listeners, just for the future, we're going to cover all of that stuff before we finish this part 2. But in the meantime, let's talk about, if you don't mind, I don't want to, you've done the research, so you've got it prepared for next time. Because we want to talk about the shops as well. I think. Can
I tease something for next time?
Please tease.
Oh yeah, the Beverly Sunset Boutique is patterned after the entrance to the Warner Beverly Hills Theater that was demolished in 1988.
Ooh. So that's what I want to do for this episode. For the remaining time, let's talk about what these buildings are, what's on them, that kind of thing. Let's do the streets, which was the original intent.
And just in case I forget, I do want to mention that ABC Soap Opera Bistro was the place where one of my favorite improv teams, Super Ego, was formed.
Right.
And it's Matt Gorley and Jeremy Carter.
Yep. Matt Gorley, who was also Push, the Talking Trash Can.
Yep.
A podcaster extraordinaire. He has a new podcast.
That'd be a great guest.
Oh, he'd be a great guest. Oh my God.
He might actually do it.
Let's call Matt. David, call Matt. Matt Gorley. You can find him at Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. He also has a new podcast where he and a friend walk through malls and talk about the malls. Yeah.
He also did a show called the Pistol Shrimps Basketball. Basically him.
Yeah, that's no longer.
Oh, okay.
This is Pistol Shrimps Presents.
That's awesome.
Mall Walking. That's apostrophe.
Can we all just stop listening to this episode and listen to some Matt Gorley quality podcasting?
Yes.
Yeah. Since we're loving on Matt Gorley, also he has a great podcast called I Was There Too, which is
I love that one. Yeah, it's discontinued, but it was a very good podcast.
Yeah. He's great. I love him.
I Was There Too is sort of actors or whomever were in movies, but not the main star, and tells the stories about kind of also being there.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots of podcasts for you to listen to, folks. In the meantime, we're going to continue talking about these streets. High level, to me, Hollywood Studios Sunset Boulevard is trying to represent the 1923 Hollywood that Walt Disney found when he moved from Missouri. The DCA one feels a lot more like the late 90s satire, more caricature of what people think Hollywood is outside of California.
I would defer. Well, the Hollywood Studios version seems to be more 30s, 40s Hollywood.
Yes. Sorry.
And not to contradict you directly.
No, I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, in California Adventure certainly did have a lot of that stink on it originally, but they've been tried to, while still keeping schmoozies and award wieners and the poster for leading man and leading lady by the toilets.
That's a hidden treasure.
It sure is.
Yeah, the PTR boys talked about that quite a bit. I don't remember what the context is, but they talked a lot about those things and what they were kind of trying to represent. Like one was trying to represent Clark Gable, and one is trying to represent Greta Garbo or something.
I think the thing about the DCA version is there's a lot of trying to represent ... And if they all kind of hit on that same mid to low level of like, oh, someone did something in Photoshop and that's cute. If they had a few standouts of like, if they had a few actual clever things, it might not hurt so much.
Yeah. So Fairfax Market is your Anaheim produce, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a lot more Spanish style architecture.
Yeah. And this is actually, there are actual buildings that it's modeled after, like the Gone Hollywood store, which is, so walking in, it's across from the former Soap Opera Bistro, Forever in Our Hearts Soap Opera Bistro. That is modeled after the Bullocks Wilshire building on 3050 Wilshire Boulevard. This is all from Yesterland. Thank you, Yesterland, friend of the show.
Oh, yes.
And the replicas are pretty good.
So say that one more time. Is this the Whitley building?
No.
The Beverly.
The Beverly is formerly on another podcast on our network.
I'm just looking at all the pictures you sent, and I have a picture of you.
Let me pull them up.
And there's a picture of the Beverly.
Oh yes, that facade down there.
You
by the end
mentioned
of the
something
street.
about the Beverly not too long ago. I thought you were mentioning the drink. Was that
I
you,
mentioned
Eric?
the Beverly Sunset Boutique, which is the first building on the left as you head down Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
At Hollywood Studios.
Does it exist? Is it something in it?
Yes, It is an actual store.
Is it a villain store?
It used to be a villain store. Now it is a candy store and a toy store.
That's right. And further down the pretend street with the mural of the sky painted on it is a theater that I can't. It's the Sea Pest Theater.
On the same picture with the Beverly?
Yeah, El Capitan Theater. Sea Pest. And it says Walt Disney Presents Fantasia.
Yeah, I don't know. Crest?
Maybe Crest.
Crest sounds more plausible than Sea Pest.
Or the Sea Pest Theater where future substitute teachers go.
Crest.
Probably
Crest Theater. It says, Walt Disney Presents Fantasia. Just beyond that is the El Capitan Theater that says Walt Disney's full-length feature Pinocchio.
How do you
So when did that come out?
Oh, you're looking at the sad picture of me in the thing.
Yes. And of course, the theater that is actually a theater, the Hyperion, I think says "Hooray for Hollywood" on the marquee.
Sure does. It sure does. So that would have been both 1940.
Yeah. So it looks like it's evolving to be a little bit closer to what Sunset Boulevard has successfully done.
That's interesting.
Role Models building, that looks like it was original. The Role Models is a shop.
That is such an interesting little detail because the rest of the land, the entrance to the park itself is trying to emulate, the Los Angeles,
Walt's
the Walt,
Hollywood.
Yeah. And then you go to actual Hollywood and we're in the 40s now. That's stupid.
Right. That's at least what I'm getting from the architecture and from the marquees and that sort of thing.
Well, that's the thing about DCA's Hollywood Boulevard, because it started out with so many puns and so many takes on things. Like the animation building is a take on Streamline Moderne architecture, but it's in a 90s style. It's got lots of little swoopy things and it's in cool colors and it's not quite there. So they've been trying to rebuild the street ever since. And there are a lot of really great architectural flourishes there that do map to buildings around the LA area,
and they do it very well. I wasn't really aware of it until I saw those comparisons.
Right.
If anything, I think they're not that they would ever do this, but they need to make it dirtier.
Well, there's that. Yeah. But the bigger problem, I think, with most of it is they haven't completely taken back all of the stuff that is 90s.
Schmaltzy.
Like the schmoozies sign is neon, which is fine, but it's a weird font. It's a 90s font. Off the page has a giant representation of a bunch of cartoon characters, which are all classic Disney characters, but you wouldn't see that in
Hollywood.
Or
would you?
I don't think you would around that time. It's too
even now.
It's very vibrant, it's very stark.
But the marquee at Hollywood Studios of the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, that is very much that Hollywood. 1940s Hollywood. And if they did the same thing with Schmoozies,
change the font. It would be perfect.
It's almost as though if they were to take the god-awful characters, I'm looking at off the page right now, which is modeled after Chapman Market on 3465 West 6th, Los Angeles. It would, I think, and this, I mean, you listen to the show, you're a part of the show, I'm the weird one here. I do think, though, that it would be more interesting. It would be actually more intriguing and in some ways inviting if they took some of that crap down and it was just like, hey, come see what's in this building. and maybe still have stuff in the windows, but
like the role models one that's very subtle, and it's probably modeled after something.
It probably is. Let's see.
Well, Dan thinks about what he remembers it's modeled after.
Yes.
The same things happen in MGM, in Echo Lake, on the main Hollywood Boulevard, and on Sunset, since that's what we're talking about. Like I said, the Beverly Sunset Boutique is patterned after the Warner Brothers, Warner Beverly Hills Theater, but it's a Warner Brothers theater.
And I wonder if that's what it is, because it's not actually anything at DCA, but I wonder if they're doing the same thing. Because it's called Beverly, and it's on a street with a bunch of theaters.
But that's more of a storefront.
Yeah, it kind of is.
And the Warner has this like iconic tower that in the original incarnation, as it was built in the 30s, had like Warner written out vertically with neon,
which you would not get in a Disney theme park.
No. It says Beverly now.
I would also speculate that doing something like that so geographically close to Hollywood there might be some people that would go like, wait, that's Warner Brothers.
And that's interesting, because I mean, that's the whole premise of the original park was we're going to do Hollywood, but down here you don't have to go to Hollywood, you can come to Disneyland.
Well, and they also did this weird thing where, and it's some of this still exists, where like they build this as like the adult theme park. I mean, not like in a sexy way, but like the adult theme park where you could go and Wolfgang Puck will like
it's the Epcot of Disneyland Resort.
Give you a kiss or something, and spaghetti comes out of his mouth as he does so. And then and it's like it's serious, and and then they have like schmoozies where it's just like, okay, pick a lane.
Right. Who's Elaine?
Boozler? Elaine Boozler. She was
pick Elaine Boozler for Senate. District 6.
What is so the ABC Bistro was very ABC themed? Was it like, it feels like the commissary in Hollywood studios? They're very much like backlot commissary type of feel.
Well, it just happens to be themed after the ABC radio building.
Oh, that makes sense.
Which is no longer an ABC radio building. It is now a Schwab's.
Oh. Eric, what else have you got with models and architecture and stuff?
And I have your role models answer. It is the Max Factor building in Hollywood.
Oh, Max Factor.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing in Hollywood now, where Hollywood Studios. So the same building, the Beverly Boutique, the next entrance down, you can see a clear shift in the architecture, and that is patterned after the Pasadena Winter. Okay. Yeah. Patterned after the Pasadena Winter Garden ice skating rink.
It feels very Spanish.
What?
Is this where the Anaheim Produce is?
No, we're not there yet.
Okay.
That's the LA Farmers Market,
which is also what the one I just said in DCA is modeled after, because it's very similar facades.
Yes. Yeah. It's just that they did more of a farmer's market because there are multiple buildings that all fit into that style.
Right. Fairfax Market.
Right. So the third entrance on that same building is patterned after the 35er, which is the oldest bar, the oldest cocktail lounge in Pasadena.
Ooh. Is it anything? Is it just a facade?
That's the thing. The difference between these two streets is everything in Hollywood Studios on Sunset Boulevard is a place.
Okay.
It's a building. It's a shop. They have multiple entrances that represent multiple buildings. But they're all real buildings you can walk into.
Not unlike the three buildings in Liberty Square that are all three different types of architecture, and it's all one store.
The Christmas shop and
it's all one store with three different facades representing three different things. Similar thing here on the left-hand side in Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, and on the right-hand side, they have the same thing.
And at California Adventure, each of these buildings is hiding something that is
right.
It's not an empty space.
If you get to the right angle, there's stuff there. It's just that most of these are in Hollywood Studio or in DCA are facades. You can see steel behind them. They were designed to be a backlot experience.
Right. That's a good point. It's intentional, though.
Right. Oh, yeah. It was intentional.
Yeah. It's a weird move, but definitely intentional. It's
like, is it fair to say that Hollywood Studios is recreating Hollywood with functional, like what Hollywood looked like, and DCA is more reflecting the false facade of backlot and, you know, kind of a Hollywood like stage presentation. Is that fair?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's I guess in some respects it feels cheaper in DCA, but that was the point.
How dare you, sir?
The point was to create these facades, not create a building that looks like that building.
Because it was a backlot.
Right.
It's
fulfilling its purpose.
Land. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yes. And there are definitely, we're not far away from where that concept, just the strands of it fall apart like so much spaghetti coming out of Wolfgang Puck's mouth.
Because it's currently disconnected.
Right.
Perhaps you could argue when it opened, it was doing its job as intended better than it is now.
It's probably doing its job better now than it was then. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think there was a course correct too, because it and none of it ended, well, very little of it ended up being what they intended for it to be, because the people that had the intent didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Okay. Or they didn't have enough money for it.
Well, that too.
They didn't allocate any cash toward it. And Dan, can I just say that now I'm just picturing Wolfgang Puck advancing toward me with his arms out, and his mouth is a gaping black maw. His eyes have turned red, and he's just going and firing spaghetti at me.
Stuff of nightmares.
By the way, any fans out there who want to animate any of these moments, you feel free.
Please, fan art.
Okay, it could be on our next April 1st episode on April 17th.
Yes.
So, Eric, you're continuing down the street. You basically have a recreation with all those little restaurants of the farmers market.
Farmers market, yeah,
right. So that's farmers market, and then we end at Tower of Terror, which we went through in great detail.
True, except for the awesome stone pillars on either side of the street. Those stone pillars are a recreation of the pillars that marked the entrance to Hollywood Land, the original subdivision.
That's right.
That created the Hollywood Land sign on the hills.
Right. Which, listener, if you did not know, used to say Hollywood Land.
Right. And those gates still stand, and they are there now in Hollywood Studios as well, with a bathroom.
I always wondered what that was. Because it felt so out of place.
Right. And it looks out of place when you look at pictures of driving down the street, and suddenly there's this old stone. It looks like European old, like castle old.
Yes,
but that was the entrance to.
That's interesting.
But that's on North Beechwood Drive. So
we won't cover the phantasmic part of it now. We already have, but it's annexed, I would say. It's not really part of the street.
It's so far down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back around on the right-hand side, past the bathrooms, coming back towards Hollywood Boulevard.
Before and after the bathrooms, there are shops.
Oh.
Yes. Do you want me to?
Yeah, I want to hear about it, but I'm just in my mind's eye, I'm thinking the bathrooms are kind of an isolated thing as part of the stone pillars. Is there a shop next to it?
There is a shop in between. So if you're coming back up the street, so you're heading south, because this Sunset Boulevard, despite how it looks on the maps, is north-south. It's straight north-south.
Tower of Terror is at the north end.
Yes. So if you're heading south, past the stone pillar bathrooms, there is the Beauty and the Beast, Hollywood Bowl. And then there are shops, more bathrooms, and then more shops.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm at the bathrooms effectively the Tower of Terror bathrooms.
Okay.
And then you pass the entrance to Phantasmic, and you have Beauty and the Beast live on stage. Mm-hmm. That's Hollywood Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple marquees for it. And then you get to what looks like the Tower of Carthay Circle Theater.
Yes, it is patterned after the Carthay Circle Theater. Now this shop is called Once Upon a Time. a portion
watch shop.
There is at the north end. There's a Pandora. At the south end of that, there's a Pandora where they sell watches and other Pandora things. For a while, that was the Planet Hollywood shop.
I remember that. Big marquee, right? Big, Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway marquee.
Yeah. Well, that entire shop is once upon a time. One entrance is the Carthay Circle Theater. The next is patterned after the Berman Building, which is the only building on Sunset Boulevard that is patterned after a building on Sunset Boulevard. It was a fur shop. The Berman Fur Shop.
Huh.
We also have a weird bathroom in the form of the Frank Lloyd Wright bathrooms where you can find the leading lady and leading man poster.
That's right. That's the same bathroom I'm referencing down an alleyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, I also neglected, and I'm very sorry, listeners, if you've been yelling about this. Now's the time. At Award Wieners, the big build is the best wiener in a supporting role.
Mm-hmm. I get it. The bun being the roll.
The roll, yeah. Bun. There's another people who also call buns rolls. And but it's spelled ROLL, like the roll that you eat, not the roll in a movie. So there we go. Yeah,
I generally call buns butts.
Well, who doesn't?
Well, if we're going to be lewd about it.
Asher definitely does, and he's been saying the word butt a lot.
He sure
That
has.
kid is,
naughty.
He's discovering things about himself.
Yeah. Wonder if he would do a podcast called Butts Up.
That'd
like
be
ears
great
up.
if he did, but with a butt. Yeah.
But BUTTZ.
Because there's a Z in ears.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we
did not put that together at all.
Oh, wow. Before we get to that bathroom, there's also a facade that looks like the Oakland Floral Depot and the Cellophane Building in Pasadena.
Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane. Oakland isn't in Los Angeles.
Well, there's a lot all over the place. After you pass the bathrooms, which aren't particularly
notable
themed, there's a sort of Spanish influence with the Granada buildings at the north end of the next chunk of buildings.
There's like a circular tower looking thing too.
And that's the Academy Theater, which is now the Academy Cathedral, which since the 70s has been a church, but was supposed to be the original home for the Academy Awards, but they never actually filmed the Academy Awards there. So, that's the Legends of Hollywood shop.
Got it. And is that all that building, that one shop? Because there's another entrance that looks like a theater marquee.
Yeah, the theater marquee is the Academy Theater portion.
Got it.
The complete opposite end is the Granada buildings with clay tiles on the roof. Those circular clay or like pipe style clay tiles. There's also a portion that looks like the Lorena Theater in Sherman Oaks, and there's a portion of the building that, if you look at it on the outside, it's just labeled 94. They have it written out in script, 94.
Is that because that's the year the land opened?
Yes. But yes, that is a nod toward the year that Sunset Boulevard opened. But that looks like some very specific streamlined buildings in LA, but nothing. It's very highly modified. That's
technically where Sunset Boulevard ends because the Red Trolley Cafe is on Hollywood Boulevard. That's the Starbucks. Awesome.
Yeah, the entrance is there. There's also an entrance to the Brown Derby from Sunset Boulevard behind the Red Trolley stop, which is a map destination.
There's a really cool map that's like an actual map of the railway, because it's got Rancho Cucamonga on it, and Ontario and that kind of stuff. It's a pretty cool actual map.
It is fun, yeah.
So
and nearby you can buy cotton candy, Dan,
and popcorn,
but you don't have a Schmoozies. By the way, Schmoozies was modeled after the Crossroads of the World building on 6669 Sunset Boulevard.
Hey, so I want to do a similar tour. Great. I know we've kind of covered all of it, Dan, but if we could do a similar tour on Hollywood Boulevard land. Do you have that? Are you ready for that?
I mean, I could certainly try.
While Dan is getting ready for that, guess what else is a replication of the Crossroads of the World building? It's the main entrance to Hollywood Studios, that big pillar in the center as you enter the main gates at Hollywood Studios that has Mickey on top, which is also, so it's a take on the Crossroads of the World building, but it is also a lightning rod. That Mickey is a lightning rod.
I remember hearing that. Okay, so Dan, when you first enter, Elias and Company is technically Buena Vista Street, so we're not going to start there.
Right there,
Hollywood starts at Gone Hollywood, which is a shop, and you said that was modeled after.
That was modeled after. Where is it? It is modeled after the Bullock's Wilshire.
Oh, okay.
In 1929,
being a store?
John G. Bullock of Bullock's Department Stores, opened the luxurious Bullock's Wilshire. It is no longer there. It's probably not occupied by anything because the homelessness crisis in this country is absurd.
Okay. So that's still a shop, which used to be. Award Wieners. Do we know what that's modeled after?
It's modeled after the best comedy there is, Jimmy.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's okay. See. And then you've got Mickey's PhilharMagic marquee.
Yes.
And then you've got facades that are effectively covering up a courtyard.
Right. And those facades.
The dining area from Award Wieners.
Yes, where you get to see people shove those wieners into their mouths. That legitimately amused me. I'm sorry.
Isn't that area mostly hidden behind a facade?
Yeah, it
That's
is.
another episode.
The wiener eating area. Wiener shoving area.
Why is that so funny to me? Oh, I'm a 10-year-old, just like Asher. Let's see. Jimmy, where are you going with this? Because I kind of have just 3 different windows open. Okay.
I'm taking a tour west to east.
Okay.
And then we cross over into the little backlot area with Monsters Inc. and we come to Schmoozies. Now, Schmoozies looks like a very Spanish style.
It might be. The fine people at Yesterland didn't do my homework for me on that one.
That's okay.
So
Fairfax Market. It's fair to say that's the farmers market.
Right. That's the farmers market. Let me tell you what I do have. The Souvenir Itch, which is a souvenir shop. I don't think it's called Souvenir Itch anymore. It is I'm referencing too many things here. Cahuenga building, I think, at DCA. It is now that is one of the main shields of the wiener shoving. It is modeled after Owl Drugstore.
Nice.
6382 Hollywood Boulevard.
Now you've got my attention.
It's almost as though you would get a richer and more interesting experience by going just a few miles in a certain direction to see these interesting old buildings that were built just to be, say, a drugstore or whatever.
Do you want to see Owl Drugstore in person, or would you rather go into a building that looks like Owl Drugstore and buy a shirt that has Thor on it?
Okay, I'm sold. You're right. We got the Hyperion Theater thing.
Yeah, we talked about Beverly already. The Hyperion Theater is just kind of buttressing the original point, is actually a facade where even on the app you can see scaffolding.
Yes,
holding it up.
Yes, it is not. They're not hiding that at all. That's modeled after the Los Angeles Theater on 615 South Broadway in Los Angeles. And this picture, they were showing the Jules Verne Adventure Film Festival. That was in 2007.
But let's remind the listener and me that the name Hyperion is related to Disney.
It was their first film studio, I believe.
That's right. It was on Hyperion.
Yes.
And then moving our way back west, we have the Animation Academy featuring Anna and Elsa's Royal Welcome, Turtle Talk with Crush, and Sorcerer's Workshop, as well as Off the Page.
Yes.
In that same building.
Yes.
All excellent things.
And also, what's really interesting is right next to, I don't know, it's moderately interesting. Right next to that facade we just talked about is another facade from an entirely different building. And that is, the inspiration is the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which is interesting because just over on the other side is another building element that says Beverly, which is not the Beverly Wilshire, or maybe it is.
Maybe.
Hold on. Let me see.
A mystery.
Investigations are happening. Let me take a look at that picture again.
And then Eric, another thing, while Dan's looking, I think at one point we were going to compare the animation building to the Living Seas because of the Turtle Talk with Crush talks. and the whole you can do more than one thing in this building thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think in order to do Turtle Talk with Crush, you have to cover where it's in. True. It's the same experience, but it is, I'm sure it's influenced by where you are.
Yeah, you can't say which is better until you figure out the environment, because if they're identical shows, other than Turtle Talk with Crush is in a sea environment, but that can't be the entire argument.
No.
Yeah.
I suppose it could be, but
if you want me to talk about hydrolators, that's the best way to get me to do it.
Well, I always want you to talk about hydrolators. But yeah, so art of animation building versus Living Seas, we'll get there. That's another episode we have to do before part 2 of this episode.
Are you taking notes? We've made a lot of changes today.
I've got it all. And then, all right, so getting past off the page, we already talked about the ABC radio station, and we've covered Hollywood Boulevard land.
Well, and then since we're talking about facades, the Whitley building, which is the facade that covers the stage where they usually have some kind of a show. Sometimes they have, sometimes a local middle school band will come and perform. And they currently have Alice's magical place thing where she does cooking or something.
That stage across the way from Monsters Inc.
Oh,
so on the back side of
that's on the back side.
The place that people generally don't go. So the facade covering that is the Whitley building, and the inspiration is the Bain building at 6601 Hollywood Boulevard.
Very cool. All right. So for this episode, I think it was a really good table setting for the next one, so we don't have to go through all of it again.
Jimmy just doesn't want to admit he doesn't know how to assign points.
I don't. Absolutely.
He's 100%. Out of touch.
I gave up on the verses a long time ago. But I think we already kind of talked about it, and I couldn't tell you which is better without getting more context into, because it feels like these things are both trying to do something. And currently, Hollywood Studios has a more cohesive vision of that.
Mm-hmm.
DCA's version is trying to get there and is better than it was, I think.
Kind of.
But but I don't want to award points at this point. I think I want to set the table for what we do moving forward when we have episode 2 of this, where we actually award points after we've covered everything. We can call back to some of this stuff, but in the meantime, we have to do Superstar Limo versus DAK Boats, Art of Animation versus either Launch Bay or the Living Seas. We got to figure that out. The restaurants, High Level, and both. Disney Junior Live on Stage versus Disney Junior Dance Party. Brown Derby versus Carthay. Mickey's Philhar Magic in both. So we need to do those episodes.
A lot of work to do.
I think because we've been teasing this for so long, and Eric, feel free to edit this out if this doesn't go anywhere. I think that we might want to just go ahead and commit to doing Superstar Limo versus the Boats Around Nothing for our next episode.
We should do that.
Let's do it.
Because that offers a bit more of a payoff to where we are now.
Yes.
And
there are things we want to talk about.
Remember the series of Star Wars Land things? I have no problem with making those 6 episodes the next 6 episodes.
I wouldn't want to do that. That would make I would absolutely lose. My view of the world would become progressively darker as we go forward. But I'm ready for that Superstar Limo.
Superstar Limo versus the Animal Kingdom boats that go nowhere.
And listener,
and then
can you guess
Small
which
World
one?
after that?
Ooh,
sure.
Ooh.
We gotta get a big guest for Small World.
I see what you did there. I think that so for Superstar Limo versus Boats Around Nothing, is this going to be a which one is worse, or is it going to be a which one was better?
Oh,
because they're both closed. So I think
true.
We could go into which one deserved to be taken It's misery
because when we did Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
And how much of Superstar Limited we get into?
We skimmed it. Yeah.
I think I did.
That was
I did Monsters
overlay.
Inc.
Yeah.
I did Monsters Inc. So I don't think I went through a lot of Superstar history.
It was an IP overlay episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, if you're okay with it, I want to leave it there.
Totally.
Like I committed to the beginning, listener, you will have resolution to this, but this was a nice little preamble, preview of coming attractions, and a little bit, let's be honest, of us workshopping our podcast.
Don't admit to that. No.
Oh, sorry.
No. The listener didn't need to pick up on that. They probably. They're very smart people.
It was not
totally
intended to be that, but it is a byproduct of the evolution of this show. And as we get varying levels of busyness, but thank you for sticking with us.
And as we were talking about this episode, Jimmy, I remember you were like, okay, so what's the point? Where are we going with this? And I think Eric and I were just like, I think you'll see when we get started.
I've been researching.
Yeah,
we're kind of, it's either we'd use what we have or we don't have anything.
And Dan also said, we always figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. We figured it out. This is episode 1 of the Two Lands, Sunset Boulevard versus Hollywood Land. Now I want to get back to what we teased at the beginning.
Little Rhonda.
By the way, very good job. Thank you both. I'm very impressed at how ready you were to go through the tour of these things and tell me exactly what it was intended to be. So thank you for that research.
Eric, I was also impressed.
I
was impressed by you being impressed by me.
All right. So everybody knows this is not going to last very long because we've talked about it a little bit. It is no longer Reedy Creek Improvement District. It is now the Central Florida Tourism Oversight Committee. Board committee, something like that. Ron DeSantis kind of set his district. Ron's to put essentially his people on the board.
Mm-hmm.
But before that was put into place, the existing board got together in a very public
the day before.
Very public. No, it took them 2 months. They put this together 2 months before they figured it out.
Oh, okay.
So they got together and they made a special clause. Now, the original agreement was that there would be a new developer agreement. Basically, this is 30 years, Disney, you can do whatever you want. The board got together, very public. It was open to the public, widely announced. We're having this thing.
So, Jimmy, are you implying that if anyone were inclined to pay attention to what was happening in this area, they probably would have seen it happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
I remember this.
For sure.
What's funny is I remember the announcement, and I remember that somebody said that they wish they could have been there or whatever. It was just overlooked, right? Nobody was paying attention, but it was widely announced and very public. In that meeting, that public meeting, which everything was voted on, everything was publicly known, they came up with something called the Rule Against Perpetuities. The Rule Against Perpetuities states that basically nothing changes from today's current, the way it's been since the 60s, until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the King of England as of the date of that agreement.
That is
amazing.
Glorious.
So that means King Charles, his children, his children's children,
not the second.
King Charles III,
family, basically.
Yeah, effectively. And how many, with the incest of that, how many people are descendants of King Charles? Well, let's just say immediate family.
One of his aunts probably counts.
Right. So that's right. It's also his daughter. So King Charles, his 2 sons, their children, their children's children, the children's children, as long as they continue to procreate. Once the last one dies. Once the last one dies, then 21 years later. It is so brilliant.
It's great.
And state of Florida is now suing.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hey, listen. You knew about it. We invited you. We voted for it. What are you talking about?
You could have shown up and protested.
Nobody ever comes to our things. Why don't you come to our things?
It was just absolutely brilliant. And the fact it took them 2 months to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they effectively said in their meeting is like, we have no function.
We're just in charge of picking up
Roads.
trash. That's it. That's all we do.
It. They don't.
Even AJ on Disney Food Blog got salty about it. She's just like, they done messed up.
So it's, oh my God, it's brilliant. And so they're trying to find lawyers who can out-lawyer Disney lawyers. But remember that at the time, Disney wasn't saying a word. Like all this stuff happens is like, all right, fine.
We all
Didn't
figured that old new Bob had enough to do because he was facing that proxy issue with the stock value.
In the meantime, you just think, oh, you know what? This is going to blow over. Let's just leave it alone. Too much, negative animosity. Let's just let it pass. Let DeSantis go, whatever. Let them do their thing. Because really at the time, like we talked about, nothing really changed.
Yeah.
It was, no airports, no nuclear power plants. Basically, it's the same.
Wait, what? No more nuclear power?
But it is all rooted in the basic idea that Disney was doing this in retaliation for old new Bob, but kind of half-assedly standing up for, people to be able to be people.
Exactly. So that we think that was originally, I think, the retaliation, and DeSantis is not going to stop, right? He's not going to stop fighting until 2024. So I think all of this kind of goes back to normal in a couple years. But man, that instead of thinking what we thought they were doing was just like raising their hands, white flag, we surrender. In the meantime, instead, they were very publicly giving a middle finger to DeSantis.
I think they are actually playing some amount of 4-dimensional chess here because they know that DeSantis is not going to give up because this has become his brand. And he wants to
fighting big business.
Right. And he wants to take over Donald Trump's current presidency because Donald Trump is actually president. We all know.
That's right.
And I think they're playing it to where they know that he can't. They're forcing him to become the aggressor in this, which he has been the whole time. Right. But now instead of them bringing the lawsuit to possibly even the Supreme Court, they're making it so they're like, hey, now you have to look like the attack. Now you have to actually make it clear that you are the person doing this.
Right.
Which then I don't think he's thinking this through because, he is say it with me, he's a vape cartridge turned into a sentient being.
Sorry, it's the connections.
That's fine. I think that they are now going to push for maybe another person to be governor because he doesn't have the charisma and charm of our sexy Trump. But he's gonna basically they're making it so that he has to make himself look as though he is not friendly to business.
Right.
Because now it looks like, well, if you want to attract business to Florida, well, any business that you do attract to Florida, they're going to see very publicly that if you do anything that he doesn't like, he's going to do this crap to you.
Here's what bothers me about it. There's no benefit to anybody. Nobody benefits from this. What bothers me about it is last time we drove down there, we're driving in, we get in kind of late and we're staying at a hotel. I think we're at Saratoga Springs. And the Google Maps took us kind of a circuitous route where we're driving through just miles and miles and miles of homes, housing developments, shops, strip malls, homes, strip malls for miles.
Mm-hmm.
And I look around and say, none of this exists if not for Walt Disney. None of it.
Mm-hmm.
Central Florida does not exist in its current state without Walt Disney. Now, maybe, Universal decides they want to, maybe some other whatever goes to Central Florida and builds something, but it's not what it is today.
No,
millions and millions of people do not live and buy and spend in Central Florida without Walt Disney. And more credit needs to be given to the organization, continues to perpetuate that growth and that level of economy. They don't need to be stood in their way. They need to support it.
Yeah.
Because not that they would, but if they shut down, does Central Florida. I mean, maybe not completely because you still have Universal, but there's no Universal, there's no SeaWorld, there's no Busch Gardens, there's no Legoland. None of that is there without Disney.
Right.
Leave them the hell alone. It doesn't help anyone. It's not benefiting anyone.
But he's on a book tour, so
yeah, somebody's got to sell books, and you can't sell books if you can't pretend that you're hardline against the person that made your state what it is.
Exactly. Anyway, okay. So also there were some layoffs, which is the thing that Chapek threatened. Iger said, hold off, and they did it anyway.
Iger turned around and specifically said, hey, in regards to that proxy battle, he said, okay, we got to cut costs. Let's fire 7,000 people. And this is round one. Remind
me what round one was. There was a specific division.
The meta division.
That division was 50 people. That made a lot of headlines, but it was 50 people. He fired way more people than that.
But still, I think that sort of shows, and I know the least about business of all of us here, but I think shows us the kind of cuts that he's looking to make rather than the kind of cuts. I think the kind of cuts Chapek would have made, like he would have cut the entire Imagineering division. I mean, right. It's like, they don't do anything. But I think with Iger, he's able to go in and with more precision, or at least with more tact, be able to say like, okay, this isn't essential to what we do as Disney.
Yeah. Mid-Bob came up with this thing, and I don't care. That's my new term. I just
Mid-Bob.
Just coined that one.
I legitimately called
me.
I legitimately called Eisner Bob Eisner.
It's funny, Eric, back to your whatever you call it comparison. If in fact Chapek is what's the term, Dan? Roast beef?
Oh, a sentient plate of roast beef. Yeah.
Then it's Meat Bob or Beef Bob, and then the other Bob is Bun Bob.
Bun Bob.
or Roll Bob.
I don't know. I mean, I think Josh is more of the bun guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we appreciate all of the cast members in any division, whatever they are, parks or anything else, and it's always sad when you have to have a reduction in force. Hopefully, it's done strategically, and everybody finds their way and lands on their feet. Except Bob Chapek. Okay, so we talked about concierge a little bit. I'm going to call them to book my flight to the concierge event and 856 Art Years. And also the Coop family is back to Orlando again. We planned their trip last time they went to Beach Club. Say they will never stay anywhere else because of the proximity to so much stuff.
Nice. What about Yacht Club?
We looked at Yacht Club. Nope, sorry, they're staying at the Yacht Club.
Oh, okay.
This time.
Yacht Club's. They've got the updated rooms,
and we
Beach
found
Club
a
has
sale.
yet to be updated.
We booked, and then we found a sale that was better, and we rebooked with a better rate because that's what we do at concierge. Frequently, the people at concierge, where there's a group chat, and they will announce that people check this, every day. They'll announce when they see there are discounts offered, and we will systematically go through all of our bookings and see if any of them will qualify. It's always easier to change when you haven't booked in full. So fun secret, if you want to take advantage of these, just pay the deposit until you absolutely have to pay.
Yeah.
Because if you pay in full, they're not so happy to give you those discounts. But you can always cancel up to 30 days in advance of your trip. So when you're booking, just do the $200 and wait, because there might be a better deal.
Yeah. Why give Disney your money now when you can give Disney your money later?
And maybe less of it because of what concierge is doing for you. Now, they didn't book tickets through us. They had tickets through work, but they booked the hotel. They know how to book hotels, but because of the thing I just said, we saved them money and they wouldn't have otherwise done that. So concierge.com, 856 Our Ears. We have the other shows that we all know and love. There's 6 of them now. Ears Up In Depth, The Supreme Resort, Scraping the Vault, Puny Pod, and the Bantha Milk Podcast. I am trying to get Dr. Pershing. He is not responding. But I understand why.
Dan, is your mic starting to grow mustache hairs?
It had a little hair right there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's got hair on its head now.
I drew that
Anyway.
the first time.
Okay. So in the meantime, please contact us. I'm Jimmy, Dan, and Eric, all at earsup-podcast.com. And rate and review our show, please, unless you don't like it, in which case stop listening and don't say a word.
But give us 5 stars first.
5 stars first.
Yeah,
then
give us 5
listening.
stars to express your disappointment.
That's right.
And then,
that's what that means.
Yeah, like TSR East and West on
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah,
that's right. At some point, something might get posted.
I posted some foodie content.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I did. I don't know if it actually went through or not. I don't know how to do Instagram. I'm old.
Okay. Well, anyway, in the meantime, we look forward to, you're going to hear a lot more content, obviously not just the 6th, whatever I listed, but also other episodes like Small World. Still working on getting Carly Wiesel. She is still interested, but also still very pregnant, having babies. So look forward to that.
Pregnant people can talk too. Jimmy.
That's what I said, but she stopped doing her own podcast. I don't see why she'd do ours.
Internalized sexism right there.
Well, anyway, and then, so, but stay tuned later in this year for the actual episode of the Hollywood Boulevard versus Sunset Boulevard, the lands. We covered the streets. They're both equally the same. They're tied right now.
All right.
And until next time, be good to each other. And until next time, I keep saying, court is adjourned. How many times did I say until next time?
A few.
Enough.
Well, next time I won't.
Dan, I think from now on, I need to have Walt Disney saying fresh baked.
Yes, you do.
I need it. I need it. As the end of how's your gain on that belch there?
You tell me.
Fresh baked.